This is Real Housewives of the Kingdom, a sweet space where you'll hear from the hearts of fellow housewives in the kingdom of God, some just like you and some really different in various walks of life. We will talk about how God is walking with us through the good and the hard. I pray you'll be encouraged and entertained as we laugh and sometimes cry together. Most of all, I hope it reminds you we're in this together and you are not alone.
Today, my guest is my sweet friend Cheyenne Raineri. You can thank her hubby for her cool French last name. As a child, she was diagnosed with dystonia, a neurological disorder that affects the ability to control your muscle movements. She has truly walked an incredible journey. Now in her early 20s, she faces both daily and future challenges. Yet she is joyful and even says she is thankful for her dystonia. Today, she gives us a peek into what it was like to be diagnosed, how she lives with pacemakers that help her control her movements, and more importantly, how she is filled with joy and trusts God with her past and her future. You guys, she is absolutely precious, and I know you're going to love our conversation and be so encouraged. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Real Housewives of the Kingdom. This is Caroline Rogers, your host, and I am here today with a really special interview with my sweet friend, Cheyenne, who I met after my hubby and I moved out here to Paso Robles. Her husband works with my husband, and so we met them and they have become sweet friends to us here. The reason I have Cheyenne on today is because we are going to be discussing the disorder that she has, which is called dystonia. We'll get more into that, but welcome, Cheyenne.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
I'm so happy to have you here. Me and Cheyenne have a lot in common. We're both big sisters.
Yes.
We love God. We love our families. We love our husbands.
Yes.
And we love cooking and homemaking and all of those things.
Yes.
So we became friends immediately when we met. So yeah. Why don't you tell the listeners just a little bit about yourself so that they can kind of get to know who you are.
All right. Well, I'm Cheyenne. I have dystonia. It's a neurological involuntary movement disorder. And so that's why my voice sounds a little wonky, but it's okay. And then I'll tell you more about that. But I am married to my wonderful husband, Ludo. He's not from here, he's from France.
Whoop, whoop.
So it's been a really big transition and a big experience, but it's been one that I loved, and I was pretty much born and raised Christian, and I grew up in a Christian household, and throughout my life, I've had some doubts with my religion and spirituality and stuff like that, but in the past, I would say 2 to 3 years, I really just come full circle, and I've just found to love it, trust it, and love with it again.
That's awesome. I think it's so important because you can be raised to get to know Jesus and get to know the Lord. But I think it's so good when you have those moments. Doubts are not a big deal, I don't think, because I feel like God is big enough. He has big enough shoulders for our doubts. And I think that sometimes people get a little bit afraid when they start to doubt or if their kids start to doubt. But I think really just God has a different path for each of us. And, you know, He's real and He's there. And if you ask Him to show Himself, He will.
Yeah,
so, yeah. That's awesome.
I mean, in the Bible, He says, you know, you will go off, you will wander, but you will always come back. I will always be here. So,
amen. I love that.
That's something that my mom always reminds me of. And I'm just like, okay.
We are sheep. That's why the Bible is like, we need a shepherd. Tell the listeners also how old you are.
Oh, I am. Actually, I just turned 24.
All right. Well, let's dive right into this conversation. And one of the, main reasons that I am having Cheyenne on is because she really is joyful. And that is something that was really prevalent to me right when I met her. First night we had them over for dinner, she told me all about her disorder. And I just was in awe because she just had this peace about her, despite a lot of things that she's walked through. And I just think that that's evidence of God in her life. And I just think you may not have dystonia, but you might have something else that you're walking through that's hard. And I just feel like after you listen to us chat about this is just going to give you some encouragement and some strength in your own walk. So why don't you explain to us, you kind of already said it about it being a neurological disorder, but how old were you when you first were diagnosed with dystonia? And can you just kind of tell us that story?
Yeah, so I was actually born with a mutated gene, and it did not trigger until I was about 7 years old. And so ways that people can get dystonia, they can either get it from the gene being in their system, or they can get it from a traumatically physical accident, so like if you get a brain injury or something. Or this is really, really rare, but you can develop it through mental trauma.
Oh, wow.
Because
Crazy.
a lot of people, they say, oh, well, the mind and the brain isn't the same thing. They're not the same thing, but they are very, very close.
Yes.
And they're always together. There's a reason that, when you're mentally stressed, you get headaches. Even though the stress isn't physical, it's mental, but you're still getting headaches because your brain and your mind are connected. That's the most rare way to get it. I got mine, a mutated gene, but it didn't trigger until I was about 6. It's really also rare in my case that I was born with the gene and it took so long for it to trigger. And at the time when I developed dystonia, I was actually going through a very emotional time in my life. My parents were separating. They were going through a divorce.
Yeah, that's stressful for a kid.
Very stressful.
For sure.
And then we were moving away. I was moving to a different area. I was moving away from my friends. I didn't see my friends for specific reasons. And then I went to a different school. I actually went to multiple different schools. And that's hard, because it's like, why can't I see so and so? And it's like, oh well. And I didn't really ever get any clarity on that until later on. So for me, it's just like, do they not like me anymore? And because like when you're a kid, you're still in this innocent stage. So then just being in that environment, in that mindset for a year or whatever, that's what triggered my dystonia.
And explain what happened, like what started happening to your body that was different. Like, how did they know something was wrong?
So my left foot, I started having issues with my left ankle. And at first, they were like, well, did you injure it in any type of way? And I was like, I tripped over a soccer ball on the playground. But that was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They were like, okay, well, let's just keep an eye on it. And then my ankle and my foot started to turn inward, like contort, I guess you could say, inward. And then they were like, okay, well, it's probably clubfoot. Clubfoot is a disorder where your feet will contort and you can't control it. So then they were like, well, it's probably that. But then my left side, my entire left leg, it started to just bend back completely. So I would always like have it either up to my chest or back behind me, and I couldn't keep it straight.
And you couldn't control it. It was just, it did what it wanted to do.
Yeah. And then from that point, they're just like, okay, it's not clubfoot. So what is it? And then over the span of, I think, about 6 to 8 months, it just started to affect my entire body. And then it started to affect my vocal cords. And that was the big, like, what's happening,
Yeah, that was the big, like, telltale, like, okay, no, this is there's definitely something wrong, because that would have nothing to do with like your leg, you know, so that was
absolutely not.
Definitely a sign.
So then, after going to multiple local doctors, I think my parents took me to every child's doctor from here all the way to LA. So like so many places, and a team of doctors from multiple different fields met, and they all discussed my situation. They all said, oh well, we think it's a conversion disorder. So conversion disorder is psychological, not neurological. So they said we think it's conversion disorder. And then one doctor...
Meaning like they thought that your body was doing this in response to the stress going on in your life at the time.
Well, they were saying that I was doing it to myself. Yes.
That's so it's so sad to me to hear that. It's like,
that's what
this is your fault. You need to stop doing this to yourself. That's horrible.
Yeah. And then there was one doctor that said, no, I think it's dystonia. Now, this was 17 years ago. And at the time, dystonia was even more rare than it is now. And it's still pretty rare. Like when everyone asks me, oh, what happened to your leg? I tell them, there's I've never heard of that.
And she's saying people ask about her leg because she does wear a brace on the left leg.
Yes, I do wear a brace, and I do have a slight limp. So, and so whenever anyone asks about that, I tell them, they're just like, I've never heard of that before. And it's like, well, no. And then so one doctor, Dr. McGuire, he's absolutely amazing. One of my favorite doctors I've ever met. He said that he thinks it's dystonia. And then, of course, it was like 12 to 1. So obviously the majority of the diagnosis, even though I think they should have communicated it and talked about it until it was unanimous. You're all medical professionals.
It's crazy that only one doctor thought it was dystonia and that the other ones didn't look at what he was saying and go, oh, wow, okay, maybe it is that, you know?
Yeah. But it is what it is. It happened, not happen, and I think it happened for a reason. But so then I was diagnosed with conversion disorder, and they pretty much were saying that I was doing it to myself because I didn't like the situation that I was in. I didn't want my parents to be separated, and I didn't want to be going to different schools. I didn't want to be away from my friends. And I was like, well, yeah, of course that's true. Yeah. Because what kid wants that? But I don't think I would be making my life worse.
Yeah.
Non-stop. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So then they had me going to a psychologist, talking to them every week, and it's like, nothing has changed. Nothing is changing. What's going on? So from the time I was diagnosed with clubfoot to the time I was finally diagnosed with dystonia, that was about 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
So for 2 years.
So you were close to 8 years old by the time?
About 9
oh my
years
gosh.
old. So for 2 years, we didn't know what was happening. I was being told that I was doing it to myself. My parents were being told that I'm doing it to myself. And so it was pretty much it was a year of me trying to convince everyone, I'm not doing this to myself. Stop telling me I'm doing this to myself. I don't know why this is happening, but I'm not doing it to myself.
That had to put more stress on you because
really
you're
did.
I don't think I'm doing this to myself.
Yeah, no. And then I would get frustrated with myself. I'm not a doctor, so not a lot of people listen to me.
Was it that first doctor that thought it was dystonia? Was he the one who eventually officially diagnosed you, or how did that happen?
He was a pediatric orthopedic surgeon.
Oh, okay.
So he did not have any specialties with movement disorders.
With neurological.
But he works with ortho, so he sees more physical stuff.
So he had seen it happen before, so that he was just, because people come to him if something like that happens, and then he's seen that, oh, that wasn't what it was, it was dystonia.
Yeah. And then also, I don't have any ill wishes or ill feelings towards the doctors, because being a doctor, it's probably one of the most stressful jobs I can think of, because you're not just dealing with the pie, you're dealing with someone's life. Yeah. You're dealing with someone's physical state, mental state, you're dealing with that, and it's a lot. So, and doctors are just people. So then people make mistakes, and that's something that took me a while to kind of come to peace with, but it's okay. I was finally diagnosed by a movement specialist, but how we got there was one of my grandmas actually was watching Oprah. And she had an episode of a little boy who used to play football, and he couldn't walk, and he was having issues with his movements exactly like me. Oh my gosh. And he was talking about what he had, and then my grandma immediately called my parents, and they're like, hey, you need to look into this, not even knowing that
that's what it was.
Dr. McGuire suggested it. Everything that the doctors talked about was confidential, which I don't think it should have been confidential, because it was about me. It was about the patient that, whatever. So, and then after my grandma contacted my parents, they immediately started looking into movement disorder specialists, and they found one in Fresno. And we went in there. The guy was great. As soon as I walked in, he was like, there's no way that she's doing this to herself.
Oh my gosh. What a relief. Did you feel relief when he said that? Do you remember feeling that?
It didn't really feel as much as a relief. It kind of felt like finding my identity, I guess you could say. Yeah. Because for the past 2 years, I went through people telling me
this is who you are. You're doing this to yourself.
Are you doing this to yourself? I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. So that was actually a really special moment for me, because I finally
pivotal,
and not just me, but everyone.
For your parents to even go, oh my goodness, and your grandparents to go, you're not doing it.
Had an answer. We all finally had an answer. As soon as I walked in, he was just like, this is clearly dystonia. It's a neurological involuntary movement disorder. You have no control over your muscle movements. I was almost 10 at the time. Wow. And he said there is no way a child this age would have the mental capacity or intelligence to continue these movements and this
on purpose
without stopping at all.
Yeah.
At all.
And the fact that he's the only person who thought this is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, that was a really big moment, and we finally found out what was going on, and after that, the dominoes just started going. I started seeing all the correct doctors, and then to UCSF at San Francisco, went to the neurological department, and at that specific time, they said that they were starting a trial. They were looking for candidates.
For dystonia?
Yes, but to qualify for the trial, I had to be genetic, because I had the gene inside, and that was what their whole research trial was on. And I qualified for it, and I qualified to get it, the DBS, Deep Brain Stimulation Surgery. And it was myself and a boy. We each had a generalization torsion dystonia. That's where it affects your entire body. And then there were two other male and females who had a different type of dystonia.
Okay.
But it was still genetic. But out of all the 5 patients that were part of the trial, I actually came out with the best results.
Wow.
Even though we went through those, and I say we because it wasn't just me, it was my family too.
Well, because you think about with like us being even as like big sisters who love our siblings, like if they were going through something like that it would be heart-wrenching to deal with, you know?
Exactly. And even though we went through 2 years of just stress and doubt and just issue after issue, just wall after wall, once it all finally like happened, it was so much sweeter than it would have been if it just happened
right away.
Like right away.
Because like it's like the amount of trial you walked through to find it was matched with the amount of like relief, and so you could experience even more joy because of how much trial you walked through. Okay, so you talked about the deep brain stimulation surgery, and that's the surgery that they put your pacemaker in with?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So explain that a little bit, what that is, and what it does for you.
So, DBS is they put stimulators in your brain, and then the stimulators are in a certain part of your brain. Now, they can use DBS for multiple different types of disorders. For mine specifically, they put the stimulators in the pre-motor cortex and the primary motor cortex. Those are the segments of your brain that control your motor movements, so your muscle movements. So that's where they located the stimulators, the little tiny, like thin metal rods. And then on the other end are wires that they run through underneath my scalp, down my neck, to the 2 pacemakers in my chest. And then when the pacemakers are on, they're pretty much just the battery for the stimulators. The stimulators are the ones that do all the work. So, and then the stimulator have a left one and the right one. The right one controls my left side. And the left one controls my right side because your brain is opposite. And so each side is set at a different frequency level or voltage level. And then there's another level, but I can never remember what that one's called. And then they can all adjust that by hooking me up to their computer with something like this, like my charger. I'm charging my batteries right now with my little battery charger.
Yeah, and it's basically it's a wireless charger, and it looks kind of like a pad that she basically just lays on her chest. You can't see the charge ports that are in her chest, but when she lays this little pad on, it charges it, and then that's connected to a battery pack that she charges in the wall. So, and then how often do you charge? Like per day?
So if I charge every night, it'll only take like 10 minutes each. But if I wait a night or 2, it turns into like 40 minutes each.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after you got all of that done, was it immediate? Like when you came out of surgery, was it an immediate relief, or did it take a little bit?
So since the surgery was experimental because it was a trial, and since I was small, the same thing with the boy. That was part of the trial because we were both the same age. We were in the same age group roughly. We actually had to get each surgery separately. So the first surgery was the stimulators. So they did the stimulators first, and then they did the pacemakers about a month later.
Okay.
But this is how crazy just medicine and your brain is. Like the brain is probably the most complex part of the human body that is
incredible.
Still being researched is only like maybe 30% like figured out. Like there's still a good 70% that we don't know about. Just like the ocean, pretty much.
Right.
So they had to do them separately, but after the first surgery with just implanting the stimulators, I came out, I woke up, and I was talking normally.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that wasn't even with them on. And like the doctors, they were like, this doesn't make any sense. What's happening? And they actually said, so before my surgery, I had issues talking because dystonia affects your voice, and I was actually talking way worse than I am now. So I was always talking like this. That's kind of how it was all the time. And,
kind of like you're sucking air constantly.
Yes, yeah, I don't know why. They said that coming out of this surgery, I would only have about 25% chance of getting my voice back.
Oh my gosh.
And
that's a miracle.
And that was the first thing that came back. And my surgery wasn't even complete.
That wasn't even, I mean, like if they said there was only a 25% chance, that was like a small portion of what they were trying to accomplish in their mind. Like, okay, let's get you to be able to control your movements and to be able to like live. Yeah. So how cool that God just gave you that first, even before it was done.
So I came out of there. I was actually talking like way better than I am right now. Because the thing about dystonia is that it is progressive.
Oh, okay.
It does progress. So kind of like Parkinson's is the disorder that's most similar to dystonia, either Parkinson's or ALS. And then after I got my pacemakers implanted, I would say about a year after my final surgery, I started to walk again.
He talked about her foot kind of going back behind her and all of that, and about her brace, but there was the period where you couldn't walk.
Oh yeah, I was completely in a wheelchair. I was pretty much like curled up in a ball, pretty much.
But you could kind of like scoot yourself around if you were on the ground.
Yes.
But then when you guys were like out, you were in a wheelchair. So a year later, you were able to walk again, and then like your movements were starting to be under control. So as a kid feeling that, was there like a moment of total relief, or was it just kind of like a gradual as you were healing?
It was gradual. I mean, especially when you're a kid. So we believe that, you know, once something happens, it's gonna like work like that, you know, because we're just because like we don't really know what life is, and you know, we don't know how it works, and we don't really understand that there are steps you have to take. It doesn't just happen like that.
It's cool though that God gave you your voice back first, because it's like, that's, as a kid, like to be able to do that was such a moment for you to be able to realize that you could speak again.
Yeah.
Talking to you about it, I feel like you seem very gracious towards doctors, and doesn't seem like you have a lot of animosity or anger about everything that you've walked through. Was there ever a time that you were mad at God for allowing you to go through it? And even up to now, really?
So yes, and that's okay.
It is okay.
But so I wasn't really mad at God. I was just like, what did I do wrong? I wasn't blaming him for what happened. I wasn't like spiting him for what happened. I was just like, why are you punishing me? Like, what did I do wrong?
I feel like that's a human response, like a real human response. I've been studying in Mark at our women's Bible study at church, and it was, you know, we've been going over all the different people that Jesus healed. And there was the one where the disciples like asked him, oh, what did he do? What did he do wrong, or what did his parents do wrong? Because even like back then in ancient times, the Jews believed if somebody had something, like they were, you know, paralyzed or whatever, that they must have done a sin. And at least it's what the enemy tries to put in our heads.
Yeah. And then there were times where I looked at it as, why are you letting evil penetrate into my life more than you? So that was another thing. Like to the point where I felt like he just didn't care about me anymore, you know? Because it's like, why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? I didn't do anything wrong, or I didn't think I did anything wrong. Is the devil gonna be a part of my life more than you are? Like, so it's kind of like that. But the thing that kept me the most content, I would say, is seeing and knowing that there's still people that have it worse. And that's always been a really big thing for me. And
like not just focusing on your own situation, but realizing, I think it can be hard because I think we want, sometimes it's easy to focus on our own situation because we know everything about it. It's very much affects us. In our life, when everything around us is going okay, we feel like, oh yeah, God is good, even though we know other people are struggling or whatever. But then the minute we struggle, sometimes it's easy to go, oh gosh, why is this happening to me? But then so good to just remind ourselves, I mean, there is sin and pain in the world, and that, you know, and the enemy is very much here and around. So it's a very good perspective to draw away from your own struggle.
And so something that my grandpa always says, my grandpa is probably one of like the most amazing people I've ever met.
The grandpa that I've met?
Yes.
He's awesome.
Yes. So he
is a Jesus-loving biker who has like spread the gospel in the most like in the most like crazy biker gangs like all over the country.
And he's also just been through so much, like personally. Like he
died.
He did multiple times. He is a veteran from Vietnam. He went through everything that he went through there, which I can't imagine that. I can't imagine.
War is crazy.
That he saw or went through. And then he also broke his neck and died like 4 times. So it's like he's been through a lot, and he always says, you complain about your shoes, but there's someone out there with no feet. So that's what he's always saying. That's always like stuck with me. I'm so grateful that I have that perspective. That perspective has stuck with me. But it's also like sometimes it can be negative because then I feel bad about complaining about stuff that I do have every right to complain about. And it's like setting that boundary and creating that safe place where, like, yes, this is your life and this is happening in your life. So you can absolutely complain about it right now, but don't live in that complaint.
Gosh, that's so
Don't
good.
live in that mindset. Like, you can complain about it. You have every right to, because you're stressing out about it. And it's obviously not a good thing.
And God knows it's hard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like, but just don't live in that mindset. And also know that there are people, situations, and when you do think of that, it really does humble you, even though you wish you didn't have to think of that, because you just want everything in the world to be good, and you just want
it's not bad to want to be comfortable, but I think that I love that. I'm like, I feel like, and mic drop. That was like such good wisdom. And I think I look at that, like, I think, holy cow, you know, you're in your early 20s and you've walked through more than most women in their early 20s have walked through. And it's so cool to hear the wisdom that you've gained from that and the perspective that you've gained. So I'm so grateful that you're sharing that with us, because I know that there's people listening who are walking through all different kinds of things. And I think it's good for people to hear that it's okay to grieve it. It's okay to feel like today sucks. Yeah. Today I'm mad, you know, and then, but to go, okay, but I'm not going to live there. There are other people struggling today. Let's move on to the next thing.
Exactly.
That is so cool. If you're listening, you can already tell that Cheyenne's just a super joyful person with a really super just positive look at life. But were you ever self-conscious? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of being self-conscious, it's okay to be self-conscious, because that's just being a part of being a human. Like, confidence, it's a great aspect to have, but it's not an easy aspect to have. It takes work. It really does, because we are our biggest critic. We really are. So for me, that actually took me a long time to accept. So, because for me, I went through a lot of bullying.
Which makes me so sad to hear. I mean, honestly, like, I had girls bully me in junior high, you know, so, I mean, I know a lot of people go through it, but it makes me sad that you had already walked through so much.
And for me, like, so at the time, I obviously didn't like it. I was just like, why are they mean to me? Like I didn't do anything wrong. It's not like I want to be like this. After a while, I started to think back to times where I saw someone that looked different, and what did I think about them. And I remember one time we were at a buffet. There was this really, really like heavy set guy. Like really heavy set guy. And he had like 3 plates in front of him. And there's me, who has no idea who this guy is, what he's been through, how he got there, why he got there. But I'm just like, why is he eating so much? Like, that made me feel horrible. And it's like, but I still did it. I still thought of that. I didn't say it, but I still thought of that. I'm just like, okay, well, when people see me, they see something that they don't see me every day.
They don't understand.
They don't understand it, you know, and then a lot of times they don't know how to express how they feel about it.
Especially kids.
Exactly, especially kids. So then you have the people who either don't say anything, but they still stare and point and whisper. And then you have the kids that do say stuff. And for me, a big part of it for me was like, they could be having a bad day. They could be going through something that they don't want to go through. So they're taking it out on me. They could be feeling insecure, especially in middle school and high school. People feel pressure from other people, especially in groups and cliques.
Because they're trying to fit in.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in that, I feel like junior high to high school age group, you feel you're just finding out who you are and you want to be accepted, because everybody wants a friend. Everybody wants to be accepted and loved.
Exactly. Yeah. And then so that's kind of something I was like, well, you know what? If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen, and I can either let it bug me, or I can hit that. But I will say, a big thing that got me through were the friends that I did have in high school and middle school. And the friends that I had in middle school actually stayed my friends through high school. And sweet. One of those friends is still my best friend today. She's absolutely amazing. So you don't really know where I would be without her friendship that she gave me.
It's so cool too, because it's like, you did, obviously, like you said, you had people who would tease you or bully you, but when you have your friends that love you, like, it gives you kind of that solidifying
there's somebody on my team. Now, you told me a story. I want you to tell me this story about your jeans.
Oh, yes. Okay.
In high school, because you told me, but the listeners need to hear this story.
So, when you're going through your self-conscious moments, instead of just being comfortable in your own skin, you try to find ways to adapt to, and that can often lead to hiding things about yourself. So for me, even though I still walk the same, I was like, oh well, I don't want anyone to see my brace. I don't want anyone to know I have a brace. You know, even though I still walk the same. It's like I don't want anyone.
It's like in your head, like hiding the brace made you a little more quote unquote normal.
Yes, exactly. And so from my freshman year of high school to my middle of my senior year, every single day of school, I wore bootcut jeans. I had like 7 different pairs of jeans, and they were all the exact same. And man, I wore those every single day. I just cared so much about what everyone thought, even though they themselves don't really care. So it's just
oh gosh, high school is so hard.
It is so hard. So I did 2 trips in high school. My freshman year, we went to Kauai. It was absolutely beautiful, but I was still like trying to hide my brace, you know, like I would wear like long skirts, whatever. I don't really wear shorts, you know. So I'm just like, oh, I don't want anyone to make fun of me, even though no one there knew who I was. But then we went to New York in January. It's very cold in January, and bootcut jeans are not going to protect my legs from the cold. So I was like, okay. So I had to wear insulated leggings. It was either that or I would have to wear leggings under my pants, and that's not comfortable.
No, that's like so many layers.
Especially with how much you walk in New York. I was like, I have to be comfortable. I can't do this. So I wore leggings in public for like the first time ever, and no one stared at me.
And your brace was on the outside of the legging.
Yes, my brace was on the outside of the legging, and my left leg is skinnier than my right leg because I do have muscle atrophy in my left leg due to a surgery that I got on my left calf. I have a lot of scar tissue, so that actually blocks a lot of muscle growth. So my left leg is a lot smaller. I call it my little peg leg.
It's like Nemo with his little face.
Exactly. And there's so many people in New York. No one looked at me. No one cared. And I was just like, oh, this is amazing. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. I love it here. And it's like I felt more comfortable in a place I had never been before than the place I grew up in. I felt more comfortable around people I had no idea who they were than the people that I see every day. It felt so good.
So freeing.
To just wear it and to not care.
How old were you on that trip?
I was 18.
Okay.
I just turned 18 like 2 months before. And then I went back to school and I was like, you know what? I don't want to wear my pants. I want to wear something else. I want to wear my leggings. And I don't care. But then when I got to school, I was like,
nervous.
I don't want people to look at me. But I realized that the amount of people that looked at me when I was in my leggings was the same amount of people that looked at me when I was in my pants. So it really did not make a difference. And I'm just like, so I didn't have to wear jeans every day, but I still did? Like, what is that about? So that was really cool.
This is like such a moment to just like realize stepping into like, hey, I mean, you already are living with what dystonia does with your body and that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And then, but to have kind of that as you're kind of finishing high school and like moving into adulthood.
One of the coolest things about that little transition was that my friends, all of them, they were just like, oh, you're not wearing jeans. But they were like so excited. I'm just like, I know. It's pretty cool.
And now you wear shorts, you wear skirts, you wear dresses, and Cheyenne dresses really cute. Like, y'all, she's always like in really cute outfits.
For me, it's just I never wore dresses. So now whenever I wear a dress, I'm just like, am I overdressed? It's like, no. I'm like, okay, cool. It's like,
that's awesome. I love that. I'm so glad you told that story, because I think even like for anybody to hear that and just realize people are probably not looking at you as much as you think. They're probably not as worried about you as much as you think, and kind of just having that courage.
And it's also just a really good example of the most simple events can make the biggest changes.
That is a good word. I feel like you've said like 5 things that I'm like, these are like life-changing things. These things you're saying are going to change somebody's life.
Life-changing quotes.
Yes. Exactly. Amen. So just so the listeners know where you're at today with dystonia. So we talked about your charge ports. So you charge your pacemaker, and that keeps your movements being able to be controlled. You still wear the brace, and you still have a little bit of a limp, but you still do things. We will talk a little bit later about her riding motorcycles in the Alps. That's a fun story. Is there anything else you want to say about like your current state in terms of kind of as you move forward as an adult with dystonia?
So dystonia, it is progressive, and from where I was when I first got this surgery to where I am now, my symptoms have gotten more frequent and a little stronger. That's okay. It's really showing me to just take it day by day. I mean, I can still walk, I can still talk, even though my voice is getting a little worse. I mean, I'm still going to make the most of it. So I think just having the thought in the back of my mind that it might not be this good forever. It's really, and it's really inspiring me to try and do as much stuff as I can. So right now, I'm running Airbnbs, which I'm not going to do anymore, because it is very stressful physically and mentally. And when my body is under a lot of physical and mental stress, that does worsen my symptoms. So,
and if your charge ports get too low, then you start losing control of body movements. And that sometimes looks like your face. One side of your face will move different than the other. But for those of you, so you're not seeing our interview, but that doesn't happen at all right now while we're talking, because she's fully charged, and so she is completely normal as I'm looking at her, talking to her. But if it does get low, it could do that sort of a thing. But as long as she keeps charged, then she can control her movements. And you know, she does a lot. She has 2 younger brothers. One is still in elementary school, and she helps out with that. She drives. So you do a lot. And I just want to note that, because I think it's so cool that you have that perspective, that you want to, that it doesn't slow you down. So having this dystonia doesn't slow you down. You don't really view it like that. It is part of your life, but you are just living life, and you're enjoying life. And that is something to me that really sticks out. And so that is something that I really just love to see. And I just wanted to kind of chat about and note.
And I mean, for me, it's like, okay, well, you know, me having dystonia isn't going to change. It's not going to go away. So it's like, for me, I really love that I have dystonia. I really love that I've been through what I've been through, because it's all contributed to just who I am and how I am, and holding my dystonia like next to me as kind of like an identity. It's more of a positive thing than a negative thing. And honestly, to anyone who does have any disorders or disabilities or or anything like that, and you feel like it sets you apart from people, be grateful that it sets you apart from people, because the more you think of it as a unique aspect rather than a difference, the more you'll actually really start to fall in love with it, and the more you'll really see it as one of your strongest attributes, honestly. And one of my friends, my friends and I, we always joke about my disability and everything. Cause I'd rather joke about it than be embarrassed about it, you know?
Or like sad all the time. Like people don't come up to you and be like, oh, sorry. You're like, I just want to live and laugh and enjoy life.
Exactly. So it's like that's another reason why I love my friends, because we always bring humor into our everyday situations. But one of my friends, ever since she's been my friend specifically, she doesn't call it disabled. She calls it differently abled.
That's cool.
Differently abled. And I'm just like, oh, I like that.
That's awesome. That's a really good perspective to have. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course.
All right. Well, we are going to move on to talking about how you met your husband.
Hey guys, it's Kevin
and Caroline
Rogers.
As you probably know by now, we love our marriage and are so passionate about giving others the tools they need to truly have a joyful marriage.
It breaks our hearts to know the divorce rate, whether you are a Christian or not, is 50%.
Yikes.
We also know that nobody gets married and hopes to have a divorce.
Exactly. This is why we feel God has given us the motivation to equip as many couples as possible before walking down the aisle.
On our 20th wedding anniversary, we launched an online premarital course. We share our own experiences as well as what God's Word says about marriage.
In it, we go over 5 cornerstones of a healthy, God-honoring marriage and give you tangible tips on how to walk in it. You'll have over 5 hours of video teaching from us, along with downloadable resources to take into your marriage.
We have always loved our marriage and want you to love yours too. If you're getting married and would love to have some great tools to take into marriage, join us today for the course.
Hey, even if you know anyone who is getting married, be sure to share this info with them. Link to the course is in the show notes or on our website, marriedrogersneighborhood.com.
While you're busy planning your wedding,
don't forget to plan your marriage. Join us and learn how to thrive and not just survive. So she talked about how her husband, Ludo, is not from here, that he's from France. So start with that. Start telling how you met your husband and kind of some cool things that came about because of who your husband is.
Yes. I met him at a barbecue. And he's not from here. He's from France. And I met him at a family barbecue.
He's tall and blonde, and he has a very thick French accent.
Yes. And he's got eyes bluer than the sky itself. Oh my God. So he's, yes.
He's her person, as you can tell.
He's just a goofball. He's so freaking funny, and he just dork, but I love it. He's friends with friends of my mom and my stepdad, and that's how he came to the barbecue. Like for me, at our barbecues or our parties, I know everyone there. Everyone there knows me, so it's like I rarely meet new people.
Yeah.
Whatever. And so I was there, just hanging out, seeing everyone, the usual crowd and all that. And then I go up to Mark. And hi Mark, he's hey sweetheart, gives me a hug with his little New England accent, And then he's all, this is Ludo. And I'm like, I'm all, hi, it's so weird, it's so cool. It's like he licked me. And then did a double look. You're just like, hi. It wasn't like, hi, it's nice to meet you. It was like, hi, it's good to see you again. It was
familiar.
So, yeah, just so much that I love it because it was like so cool. And ever since I was little, one of the things that's always stuck me that my parents told me about when I was little, like I said, I grew up in a Christian household. My mom and dad, like I was 4 or 5, talking about getting married and having a husband, having a wedding, and like being a princess, prince, and stuff like that. All that. I love Disney. Like, oh, who knows who your husband is, right? And I was like, you? And they're like, no, no, but God knows. And I was just like, how? Well, he knows everything. And I was like, but that's just something that's always stuck with me. And so I've always kind of believed in soulmates.
All the listeners know I believe in soulmates.
And I met Ludo. I did not talk to Ludo at first, like starting to blush. And I was like, okay, I need to leave. So nice to meet you. Bye. Because I'm just like, oh my God, like he's really cute and he's tall.
And he just gave a double take to me.
And then I passed by Blue, my stepdad, and Chance, my brother, and they're talking to Ludo. And they're like, and then Blue, he's like, hey Shy, have you met Ludo? I'm like, yeah. He's just like, he's from France. And I was like, oh, you're from France? Like I was just like, oh, what? And then I was also a little bit tipsy. Not that bad. So I was like super talkative. And I was just like, I was like asking about all these questions. And I have always wanted to go to Europe. It's been a dream that I never really thought would happen.
And in Paso Robles, like, you don't necessarily expect to, like, meet someone from France who's, like, working here.
No.
You know?
At
a family
party.
Yeah.
You do not expect that. So, and,
it's not like LA or San Francisco. It's like the Central Coast. It's like a small farming and like wine community,
yes, exactly. And honestly, the conversation wasn't really even, oh, I'm talking to you because you're really cute. It was like, oh, I'm talking to you because you're from a place that I've always wanted to go to, and I want to know everything about it. I want to know like this, I want to know that. And so we just started talking about culture. We started talking about politics. We just talked about a whole bunch of stuff. For me, I'm at a party with people who see me all the time and people who never see me talk to guys. So during our like hour and a half conversation, 3 people came up to me and they were like, check it. I was like, okay, whatever. And then we talked about food because obviously Europe and France has amazing food.
And Ludo is a chef.
He is a chef. He's a great chef. Oh my gosh.
We've gotten to enjoy the fruits of his talents.
Yes. And we were talking about, and I love food. I love trying new food. I've always been super adventurous and curious about
Which is, it's crazy because not everybody is.
Yeah.
And not everybody wants to go to Europe. And not everybody is interested in that kind of thing. So it's cool when you see how God just like works these things that we like and that we're interested in to guide us into the direction that we're supposed to go.
Yeah. He asked me if I like dessert. And I was like, well, yeah, I obviously love dessert. And then my friend came over. And she pulled me to like go dance. And I was like, okay, bye. That was the end of the conversation. After talking to Ludo, I didn't want to do anything. The next day, I
overtook you. Yeah.
And then sure enough, the next morning, I'm just there with my family, and then Ludo texts me, and he sends me a picture of crepes. He's making crepes, and he's just like, good morning. Do you know what this is called? And I'm just like, they're crepes. And then he's just like, that's cool that you know that. And I'm just like, do not a lot of people know that?
I didn't realize not a lot of people knew that.
Yeah, and then he sent the recipe for the chocolate mousse. And I made it that night. I went to the store, I got everything I want to make it, I made it, I even decorated it. I sent him the picture, and he absolutely loved it. And I was like, really? And then he asked me if I want to go to dinner with him. I was like, this doesn't really happen to me. Like, I don't just meet someone from like another country that's really cool, really smart, and really handsome. And it's like after like a day, he wants to have dinner. Like that doesn't happen anymore. So I was just like, is this like really cool? And then I told Chance, my brother, which my brother, he's like, I tell him.
Her brother works with our husbands.
Yes. He was like, oh, do it, say yes. And I'm just like, really? He's like, yeah, he's so cool. He's like, yeah, he's a really good guy. Or at least I think so. We had so much fun. It was such a great night. We pretty much talked like 90% of the time.
It just clicked.
Yeah, it just felt so natural.
You guys met, you go on this date, and then that's it.
That's
it's
it.
just,
Yeah.
and then you guys have been a thing.
Yes.
Now you got married.
Yes.
You had kind of a small ceremony when you got married.
Yeah.
But then you guys also just recently did a bigger celebration.
Yes. I like to say it's the type of love that people dream of.
It's like the fairy tale that you were like as a little girl thinking about.
Yeah, and as a husband, he's absolutely amazing. He just wants me to be happy. And when I'm not happy, he's not happy. So it's like, okay, he does so much. He gives so much.
Okay, so you had talked about it was your dream to go to Europe, and it was really cool because you actually got to go back home with Ludo.
I did.
And one of the crazy things too is that they got to ride motorcycles in the Alps because Ludo is from the French Alps.
Yes. It wasn't a trip that we planned and saved for. It was just like a spontaneous
last minute. Love that. And you got to meet his family and which is so cool. But I just think like that was to me a really cool thing, how, you know, how God just like opened up that opportunity, how you thought, oh, I'm never going to get a chance to go to Europe. And then it's like, but yet that's something that's in your mind that you wanted to do. And then that God opened up the opportunity.
And just what an amazing experience it was. It was so amazing.
Okay, well, I just wanted to ask if you had any advice for anyone who might be struggling to find joy in their own circumstance or hurt.
Well, the first thing is to know that you are not alone, and to know that there are other people out there going through their own battles. You're not the only person going through stuff, because I feel like when you're going through something difficult, you often feel lonely once you realize that, well, other people are going through stuff either just as bad as mine or worse than mine. You really start to feel like a sense of, if they can do it, I can do it. And there's that having a couple foundational relationship, people that you can talk to
and trust.
Safe spaces. Yes, exactly. Because you will realize that talking about stuff really does help. Because you can think about it, but then you'll just think about it and think about it, think about it. But if you talk about it to other people, whether it's your best friend or your parent or your therapist, whoever, it feels so much better.
It's like you're sharing the weight.
Exactly. But you can also just pray about it. For me, I just talk, just like, hey.
But that's what prayer just is, talking to God. And you know, and I think sometimes people get stuck on trying to make it sound traditional.
I feel even more peaceful, more content just being in a quiet space, whether it's my car or whether it's my room or wherever I am that's quiet, where if I just talk, I can talk to him for hours and then afterwards it just feels good. Because for me, one of the biggest things I get asked is, you know, he's there. And it's like, well, just know. Yeah, just know.
Well, and it's, I think too, for me, it's something where, you know, when you are regularly talking to him, when you're reading his word, studying who he was from the beginning of time and how he's dealt with people from the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And then you see him work in your life, you recognize who he is. You know, the Bible says the sheep know their shepherd's voice.
Yeah.
And so we know when it's God moving in our lives, and we can see it and we can feel it. But you get that by spending time with someone, you know, and when you sit for hours, and there's a lot of people who probably do not spend hours talking to God, but it is so good. And and I love that you shared that, because I think that is a really important thing, to just make sure you're actually talking to God. Make sure you're not just coming to him for, oh Lord, help us to pay this bill, help us to do that, help my mom to feel better, help, you know, but that it's hey, oh man, yesterday was kind of stressful, and I was thinking about this, and I was doing this, and what do you think about this, Lord? How should I handle this? And really asking him, and he will meet you. Yeah. He will meet you when you talk to him. Yeah. He meets you in your questions, and he meets you in your pain, and he meets you in your joy, and all of that.
And also, I know it can be hard sometimes, but taking time for yourself, that is a really big thing, because just like your cell phone, you're always using your cell phone, you still have to charge it, but you're using yourself way more than you're using your cell phone. So if you have to charge your cell phone, you need to recharge yourself.
That's so good.
You really need to recharge yourself. And then also just like you said, you can't pour out of a glass that's empty.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't have a full glass if you don't take the time to refill it.
I love that. I love all of those encouragements. Why don't you tell us, if anybody is listening and you have any questions for Cheyenne about dystonia, or if you know anybody who has it, or that sort of a thing, or even if you just are interested in reaching out to her and saying hi. And Cheyenne, why don't you tell us where people can find and follow you?
So you can find me on Instagram. And my Instagram is Cheyenne, CHEYENNE_Raineri, RAINERI.
Awesome. And I will link that in the show notes. Okay, let's do the rapid fire questions before we close. What is your life verse or favorite scripture, and why? It's
really short, but it's my favorite. And I actually found this verse in high school, so it's always stuck with me. It's Romans 8:31, and it's, what then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us?
Daily reminder we need.
And then if you always have that someone that will never leave, then you're never really alone, and you shouldn't really care what other people say or do, as long as you have this person for you.
I love it. What is your favorite thing you have ever eaten? And did Ludo cook it?
Oh my gosh, that's really, really hard. My favorite thing that I have ever eaten. Okay, yes, he did cook it. He makes the absolute best seafood risotto I have ever had in my life. It's so absolutely amazing. I think we made it for you.
He made it for us at he came over to our house and he made dinner at our house. He made this seafood risotto, and it's so good. She is correct. I love it. It is so incredible. All right, if you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
To show people how they really are. How many of us go on every single day without knowing what our true worth is.
That's so sweet. I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Shy, for being on the podcast. This has been so incredible, and I just am so blessed by your friendship, and I'm just so blessed to know you.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I mean, I love the podcast. I love what you do. And when you asked me, I was just like, really? And like, I immediately told Ludo, I was just like, Carolyn must be on her podcast. And he's just like, no way. So, I'm
That's
very very excited. And meeting you and Kevin has been absolutely amazing. And just really excited that God had that in his plan.
Me too. Well, the feeling is mutual.
Yes.
Yay, thank you.
Okay, friends, that's it for today. I'm truly grateful you joined us. If you think others would be encouraged by this episode, you can easily share it by taking a screenshot and adding it to your stories or feed. You can also text it to a friend. New episodes are available every Friday. Be sure to subscribe so you can catch them all. You can find and interact with me on Facebook and Instagram at Married Rogers Neighborhood, as well as my website, which I linked in the show notes. If you enjoyed the show today, I would so appreciate if you could take a second to rate and give a 5-star review. It helps more people find it, which makes a huge difference for me and the podcast. Just remember, we are in this together. God loves you, and you are not alone. See you next time.